In this episode, we talk about how to raise your self-esteem. Get excited because this is Tiny Leaps. Big change. Welcome to another episode of Tiny Leaps, Big Changes, where I share simple strategies you can use to get more out of your life. My name is Gregg Clunis, and in this episode, we are talking about self-esteem. This is one of those things that sort of affects everything else, right? It's the undercurrent of so much of our lives. With low self-esteem, we end up having low confidence. Low confidence means not going for the things that we maybe really want, the things we're capable of, the things that we could have. It means settling for things that maybe we aren't happy with. Low self-esteem is such a major problem for I would say the majority of people trying to take control of their life. So we're going to be tackling that in today's episode. Now, before we jump in, if you haven't joined us over on the YouTube already, find us over there, youtube.com/Gregg Clunis. I'd love to connect with you there. And if you are watching on YouTube, drop a comment down below with your thoughts on this episode. I'd love to engage with you and have that conversation. So let's jump into it. The first big thing you need to focus on when you're trying to improve your self-esteem is actually not about you, right? You need to focus on doing kind things for other people. This doesn't have to be like a random act of kindness or doing something nice for a stranger or anything like that. It could literally be doing something nice for your family, your friends, your loved ones, supporting them, going out of your way for them. Now, why do we do this? Well, because so much of our self-esteem and the lack of that self-esteem comes from sort of self-judgment, right? It comes from, to some extent, being a little conceited, being a little too focused on us. Because you can't lack self-esteem. You can't judge yourself. You can't be upset with yourself or frustrated with yourself unless you are thinking about you. Now, you might be thinking about how you relate back to a person or a situation or something like that. But the truth is, you have to be thinking about you in order to have low self-esteem. One of the easiest ways to get out of that is to think about someone else. Put the focus outside of you. Get out of your own head, get out of your own body, get out of your own world, and focus on doing something kind for somebody else. By doing that, you force yourself to think about them and their needs. And ultimately, at the end of the day, after you have helped them, after you've provided value to them, after you've served them in whatever way they might need, you end up feeling better about yourself. A big part of that is because of the disconnection, right? You haven't been thinking about yourself for whatever period of time. You haven't been stressing about all the things you always stress about for whatever period of time. You haven't been focused so much on your every move and criticizing everything you're doing. And are you right or wrong? Or did you make a mistake here? By getting out of yourself and just focusing on somebody else for a little while, you give yourself essentially a break of having to think about all the things you maybe dislike about yourself. And that allows you to come back to the picture with a different perspective. It allows you to see yourself with a slightly different perspective, one that isn't essentially pre-framed with judgment over a period of time. So that's the first big thing, is to just do something kind for somebody else. And again, it doesn't have to be like a random act of kindness. You don't need to go out and give anybody money. It could simply be giving your mom a ride to the store. It could be setting up a computer for somebody. It could be opening a jar. Like, it could be these very tiny things that you do out of the kindness of your heart and that you offer to do rather than waiting for somebody to ask you to do. And that's a very important distinction, right? Doing a favor for somebody is not necessarily the same as doing something for somebody. Now, what do I mean by that? Just very quickly here. When somebody reaches out and asks you to do something, you are still helping them. It is still valuable. But for you, from your point of view, it's not selfless necessarily, right? It's not like you approached it and saw that you could bring value here and you're offering to do that for them. you are literally doing them a favor. Now, that's not a bad thing, but it doesn't have necessarily the same benefits of being removed from yourself and focusing on the needs of somebody else as if you noticed something yourself and offered to do it for that person. So that's what I mean when I say do something kind for somebody else. Now, the next thing you need to do, I talked about in a recent episode, is to prioritize self-care and prioritize, for lack of a better word, your appearance and sort of what you think of yourself. Now, we talked in that episode about why it was important to spend a little bit of money on those shoes or the jeans or that shirt you really love or the haircut or getting your nails done or a massage or whatever it is that you're spending on. And I really stand by that. I think it's incredibly important to prioritize how you perceive yourself in the world. Now, it's not necessarily about like the vanity of looking nice. It's about how you feel because you look nice. And that is a massive part of your self-esteem. How you perceive yourself in the world, how you connect with the people around you, how you show up in the world has so much to do with how you believe the world perceives you. And if you feel dumpy and not great in an outfit and you're wearing it all day and you're automatically going to assume every single conversation you have, every interaction you have, they're coming to you from this, what is that point of view, right? And that's just typically not the case, but it doesn't really matter if it's true or not. It matters if you believe it or not. So prioritizing your appearance, quote unquote, for that purpose of feeling good about yourself so that you can show up and feel good in those conversations and those interactions and walk away from them less worried about what they might have thought about your outfit or what they might have thought about your nails not being painted or whatever it is, right? Like, you can worry less about that because you feel good. Now, that doesn't mean that you need to align with any sort of like societal norm. That doesn't mean that if you don't like painting your nails, you should paint your nails because that's what people think look good. That doesn't mean that if you don't want to get a haircut, you should get a haircut because that's what society says is proper. Like, that's not what this is about. At the end of the day, and this is why I put appearance in quotes, because it's not about your appearance. It's about how you feel. Now, for most people, creating an external image that corresponds with what they're happy with will lead to them feeling happier. And that's where the important piece is. So spend a little bit more time, spend a little bit more money on some self-care activities. Get yourself to a place where you feel good in your body, you feel good in the clothes you're wearing, you feel good in the world, and that will dramatically improve your self-esteem. Now, when we get back, we're going to jump into the last two pieces of this puzzle, so stick around for that. I need to tell you something. This morning, I decided to make a quick change to my routine. I tried out a new mushroom coffee from our friends over at Four Sigmatic. It's made with lion's mane and chaga mushrooms. How crazy is that? Mushroom coffee. And if you're not familiar, lion's mane and chaga are these funny-looking mushrooms that have been linked to all kinds of awesome health benefits. In fact, lion's mane even helps support increased focus, productivity, and creativity. And the team over at Four Sigmatic had the brilliant idea to take these mushrooms and combine them with 100% organic Arabica coffee beans. It has 0 sugar, 0 carbs, and 0 calories. It's organic, vegan, paleo-friendly, sugar-free, and dairy-free. And the absolute best part, it leaves you feeling awesome. Seriously, I had it this morning and I've got this buzz right now that just feels natural. It feels focused. It feels like I'm in control. It's not that usual like hyperactive energy that I get from my regular coffee. And it even comes in these really easy to use packets that you can bring with you pretty much anywhere. Just heat up some water, rip open a packet, pour, mix, and you're good to go. Which for me means that's awesome because I plan on traveling a lot this year. So being able to pack these with me is going to make my life and my morning routine so much easier. Plus, I get the benefits of posting on Instagram about how I am currently tripping on shrooms. So that is always a good time. Now, of course, we have a special offer for Tiny Leaps Big Changes listeners. You can receive 15% off your Four Sigmatic order. Just go to foursigmatic.com/tinyleaps or enter the code tinyleaps at checkout. That's Four Sigmatic, FOURSIGMATIC.com/tinyleaps. foursigmatic.com/tinyleaps to receive 15% off your order or enter Tiny Leaps at checkout. Okay, we are back. We're talking about how to raise your self-esteem. And the third thing we want to talk about here is that you need to go easy on your losses. Now, what do I mean by this? Historically, I beat myself up a lot, right? I screw something up, I make a mistake, I don't do something maybe I know I should have done, or I don't do it the way that I know how to do it, and I get frustrated with myself. I get angry with myself. I get mad with myself. And I start this sort of cycle of negative talk, right? I start talking to myself as though I'm, quite honestly, a monster. Like, the way that I treat myself internally sometimes is like, I wouldn't tolerate anyone talking to anybody that way. And you're probably very similar because, unfortunately, in our quest to change our lives, to grow, to be better, that also means demanding a certain standard from ourselves. And that standard can very easily get warped. That response to mistakes can very easily get warped. So one of the things we need to do is remind ourselves that we are human. And by being human, that means we make mistakes. We aren't able to remember everything all the time. We aren't able to avoid every single mistake. We aren't able to operate perfectly and execute this thing with perfect execution every single time. And that's a good thing. It is okay to screw up. It is okay to make mistakes. It's okay to fail. In fact, it is necessary. That is how you become great. That is how you change your lives. That is how you become a person capable of doing the thing that seems impossible right now. It's through those mistakes, through that screw up, through selectively remembering things in order to put your focus on something else. So you cannot beat yourself up. You've got to go easy on those losses. You have to go easy on those mistakes. You have to go easy on yourself when you are fundamentally human. Because you are not perfect. You will never be perfect. And quite frankly, you shouldn't even pursue perfect. You should embrace who you are, mistakes and all. Put it out into the world and be kind to yourself the entire way. And doing that allows you to save yourself from the constant cycle of dragging yourself down. Because it feels great when you have those standards. It feels great when you do amazing. It feels great when you don't make mistakes. It feels great when you execute properly and you do the thing you say you're going to do. It feels amazing. But that high is not worth the lows of dragging yourself back down every single time you screw up, which, by the way, is statistically more likely to happen. You are more likely to screw up and fail than you are to do it successfully. And so if you're playing that game of these extremes where you do something great and it is amazing, you are on top of the mountain, but then you screw up one time, no matter how small, and you drag yourself back down to the valley, that is not a great place to live if you want to maintain sanity, number one, but also your self-esteem. And by the way, right now, I'm talking to me. I know there are plenty of you listening to this show who are struggling with this as well, but when I tell you I am the biggest offender of this in my own life, like, this message is for me. This is what I need to hear. And I think it'll help you too. And then finally, the last thing you need to focus on in order to improve your self-esteem over time is to change your expectations. And this sort of aligns with what we just discussed. Right? If you expect yourself to perform perfectly, if you expect yourself to be this perfect specimen capable of performing perfectly at all times and executing everything that you have tried to execute perfectly and winning all the time, then you're naturally going to be upset when you lose. Right? If you believe yourself to be perfect and then you are shown evidence that you are not, Maybe in the form of a spouse calling out something that you did wrong, or maybe in the form of having to confront it yourself because the loss is right there and it's painfully obvious. The minute you are met with evidence that you are in fact not perfect, you are in fact a regular human being just like the rest of us, that's going to hurt. And that hurt, that pain is going to once again drag you down. It's going to keep you in this state of constantly doubting your own abilities, because the truth is, being imperfect is perfect. You are human just like the rest of us, and that is perfection. That is the possibility of growth and change and progress. That is the capability to do whatever it is you believe you can do. And that is true. There's real truth behind that. But that only comes if you're able to keep your head up and keep moving forward and act on the things that you know you should act on. And that is only possible through high self-esteem and confidence. So I encourage you to try the advice in this episode. I think it'll help. It's definitely something I'm acting on myself. So drop a comment on the video over at youtube.com/Gregg Clunis. Let me know where you're at in your self-esteem journey, and let's travel this road together. Let's support each other as we improve our self-esteem, improve our confidence, and grow into the people that we know we can be, the perfectly imperfect human beings that we are. I've been Gregg Clunis. Thank you so much for tuning in, and remember that all big changes come from the tiny leaps you take every day.